This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello there and welcome to Global Business Africa. We'll be giving you insight into Africa's business and financial markets. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, coming to you from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Let's start with a look at the markets. Now, world stocks firmed up today. A generally upbeat mood took hold of world markets ahead of a host of central bank meetings and, of course, economic data due this week. Most emerging market stocks were pretty flat as caution kicked in. MSCI's index of emerging market stocks eased 0.1% on the day. On the continent, most bourses closing the day in the red. However, Nigeria's NSE All-Share Index climbed over 1%, as we saw market heavyweight MTN Nigeria closing the day up 7%. Also, pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline boosted the bourse, climbing 7.08% on the day. Now, also coming up on today's show, Egypt targets $10 billion in exports to African markets. Kentucky residents struggle with loss and damage in the aftermath of deadly tornadoes. And we visit a newly renovated ancient promenade in Egypt's city of Luxor. Well, let's start off today's show in Egypt. The country has announced a plan to double exports to African countries to $10 billion by 2025. Now, authorities say the first phase will see the North African state raise its exports to $7 billion by the end of next year. That's up from the current $5 billion. From Cairo, here's Yasser Hakim with the details.
Egyptian exports to its African neighbors is meager for the continent's second largest economy. Out of the total $5 billion exported by the country, only $605 million came from non-Arab African nations.
I don't want to repeat the obvious. Intra-African trade is very weak and there is potential to raise it 2- and 3-fold. This is what we are working on. Having 7 bureaus that give us reach to about 30 African nations reflects our interest in African markets, not just for exports but imports too, and also increased trade exchange, not just in raw materials but manufactured products as well.
The government's plans to double exports to $10 billion by 2025 will take 3 stages. The first phase will concentrate on 10 countries, including Kenya and Nigeria. Exports will range from agricultural products to fertilizers, chemicals, medical equipment, and electric appliances. But there are challenges that Egyptian companies will have to navigate to conquer the African markets.
We need to encourage the banks, the Egyptian banks, to open channels in Africa to be able to support the exporters. We need to get the shipping lines into different parts of Africa. That's the first thing. And the other thing is the financial support to the exporters and opening channels to be able to export and get paid for what you export.
The government has intervened to support exporters and help them become competitive.
Knowing the recent issues with shipping and its complications, we have decided to cover 50% of shipping costs for any exporters to African countries. We launched a new initiative to provide financing to 1,600 companies as part of the Export Subsidy Fund. We also give exporters special discounts on their expenses like tariffs, taxes, electricity and gas bills. Saving money on these items will help exporters spend more on production, expansion and exports.
The North African country will benefit from the African Free Trade Area and the COMESA presidency to implement this strategy. It's also building transport infrastructure, roads, seaports, railway and air routes to guarantee a free flow of goods with its neighbors in the continent. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development has suspended South Sudan from the regional bloc, and that's due to failure to pay annual fees owed to the regional body. South Sudan's government, however, says it is making preparations to pay the dues to the Trading and Security Regional Body. Here's CGTN's Patrick Oyet with the details.
The suspension is because South Sudan has not paid its membership fees amounting to $9 million. The residents of South Sudan's capital, Juba, are reacting to the suspension.
We also, as South Sudan, have a lot of things in common with these neighboring countries. We do trade together with them. Look at the security of South Sudan and the security in the region. We need to work together with them so that all these are in place. But then if we are out of this will really affect us badly.
Suspending South Sudan now will affect the ongoing peace implementation because peace cannot go on when no pressure comes from the regional bloc like IGAD. But I think the government of South Sudan should think of resolving the issue by paying the money that the regional bloc needs.
IGAD, an East African trading and security bloc of 8 nations, was founded in 1986. The 8 IGAD member states are Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, and South Sudan. South Sudan is oil dependent and it is struggling to revive its economy battered by years of conflict since December 2013.
It was decided that the Minister of Foreign Affairs discuss all this with the new Minister of Finance so that they can chart out the way forward in order to pay all the outstanding arrears.
In July last year, the East African Community EAC threatened to suspend South Sudan over failure to pay annual contributions to the body. IGAD mediated a South Sudan's peace process which ended a 6-year civil war in the country. It is also monitoring the implementation of that peace deal signed in 2018. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Now, Nigeria's aviation ministry says that it may ban flights from Argentina, Britain, Canada, and Saudi Arabia from this week in retaliation for being added to those countries' red lists over the detection of the Omicron coronavirus variant last month. Now, in recorded comments shared with journalists on Sunday, Nigeria's aviation minister Hadi Sirika said that he had recommended that 4 countries should be placed on a COVID-19 red list, which would entail a ban on flights. Well, CGTN's Deji Badmus has the latest on that story.
The aviation minister's comment came in a leaked audio but has received wide support across the country. Majority of Nigerians are not happy with the so-called red list status of the country. Now, the Presidential Steering Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic, which has the responsibility for placing countries on Nigeria's COVID-19 red list, has not yet spoken about the issue. It's expected to meet this week, and there could be a pronouncement on the subject after that meeting. But Nigeria's Minister of Health, who is also a member of the committee, has said any decision the government eventually takes on the matter will not be a tit-for-tat measure, but literally to protect the interest of the country. Now, the United Kingdom, one of the countries to place Nigeria on its COVID-19 red list, has said it will not reverse its travel ban over the threat of reciprocity. It says the measures it took are only temporary to prevent the spread of the Omicron variant and would be reviewed at regular intervals. So everyone is now waiting to get a final word on the issue from the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19. Deji Bademasi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Ghana is planning to charge airlines $3,500 for every passenger flown in the country who isn't fully vaccinated against a COVID-19. This is all to avoid a fresh wave of infections in the country. Now, carriers that take vaccinated passengers without negative PCR test results into Kotoka International Airport will also be fined starting Tuesday. Now, authorities have also said that non-Ghanaian nationals who were not fully vaccinated may be denied entry and returned to the point of embarkation at a cost to the airline. Now look at our corporate headlines today. ShopRite's upmarket grocery chain Checkers has entered into a joint venture with logistics company RTT Group. Now RTT is currently the delivery service provider for Checkers 6060. The deal will see RTT Group's on-demand business transferred into a new company in which ShopRite Checkers will subscribe for 50% of the issued ordinary shares. Meanwhile, Kenya Airways has started direct flights from South Sudan's capital, Juba, to Khartoum. This comes as the national carrier eyes expansion in Africa. The airline says the new flight will originate from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, flying to Khartoum via Juba and then back to Nairobi every Wednesday and Sunday. And Chinese artificial intelligence company SenseTime has postponed its $767 million Hong Kong initial public offering on Monday. The move came after the U.S. government added the Chinese company to an investment blacklist. Now, SenseTime said in a statement on Saturday that it was strongly opposed to the designation and accusations that have been made in connection with it and termed them as unfounded. And Volkswagen says it is scouting locations for planned battery cell plants in Spain and Eastern Europe. The exact sites for its third and fourth gigafactories is expected to be determined in the first half of 2022. The firm also adds that it is founding a European company to bundle activities in its battery-related business to optimize their efficiencies. And that's a look at our corporate headlines. Well, let's head into a short break now, still coming up on the show. Tanzania's fuel prices remain high despite government intervention. And developers are concerned about Uganda's rising population in urban areas.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global business, only on CGTN.
This is it. I'm just about to be shot.
The tents here, bottles are being thrown as they do so.
There are about 3 critical bridges here in Malawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
Tear gas. So it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
This is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from the front
within clear view of this front line position.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN. See the difference. Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back. Well, let's head to Libya now, where the central bank has announced a plan to end years of division between eastern and western financial institutions in the country. The governor of the Central Bank of Libya, Al-Siddiq Al-Kabir, agreed on a detailed plan to launch the process of uniting the central bank. Here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim with the details.
It's an odd situation where one country has two central banks. Since 2014, war-torn Libya has had one central bank in the capital Tripoli in the west and another in Benghazi in the rival east. Unifying both central banks ahead of the presidential and parliamentary elections end of December is a complicated process, as the political differences between both sides led to the Tripoli government cutting revenue to the east.
This meant people were not able to deposit or withdraw their money in banks in the east, which has affected their lives and damaged the Libyan economy. Despite calls to release the funds to people in the east, it has been rejected by the central bank governor Al-Siddiq Al-Kabir in Tripoli. This is an unprecedented situation in any country. All these political maneuvers have affected living conditions for Libyans.
International accounting firm Deloitte was brought in to review the books, and it submitted a roadmap to merge the banks. No details have been released yet, but experts believe stabilizing the financial sector would hugely benefit a heavily indebted nation.
90 to 95% of Libya's income comes from oil. Libya exports 1.25 million barrels a day, with plans to reach 2 million barrels. Libya has the largest oil reserves in Africa at 40 billion barrels, followed by Nigeria. Libya has abundant natural resources, with a small population of only 7 million people who should have been living in luxury, if not for the political infighting and armed militias everywhere.
Most Libyans now are looking forward to elections, hoping it would finally end the political strife and build an economy that has the potential to be the richest in the region. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, in Tanzania, motorists are paying more for fuel this month. That's following the continued upward review of prices by the country's energy regulator. The prices have hit a record high even after the recent interventions by the Energy Ministry to try to strike off certain charges and levies that were considered a burden to consumers. Here's CGTN's Isaac Lukando with more.
Fuel prices in Tanzania have been steadily rising since the beginning of the year. The cost of a litre of petrol has gone up from under 80 US cents in January to the current retail cost of about $1.10, an almost 40% increase. Motorists in the country say they are feeling the pinch.
I was actually thinking of getting a bigger car right now, but with the fuel prices shooting up, I think I'm having second thoughts.
I am worried that the rise in fuel prices might also affect other commodities, in that their prices may also start to shoot up.
The government has already scrapped 8 out of around 15 fuel-related levies in a bid to lower prices, but the move appears to have done little to change the situation. President Samia Suluhu Hassan is asking officials in her government to do more.
We've been instructed as a government and as a ministry to sit down with our colleagues to look into the entire fuel business. We are to look into what is causing a rise in prices and what we can do in the country in terms of taxes, the running of things, as well as procedures in order to ease the situation for citizens.
According to the regulator, fuel prices in the country have been dictated by rising global crude oil prices, as well as the various local taxes, levies and charges, which make up over 40% of the total cost of fuel. The government hopes that with the National Petroleum Company now procuring fuel for retailers in the country, prices might begin to dip.
For many residents of Dar es Salaam, private vehicles are a preferred mode of transport. A continued rise in fuel prices might see many of them make the difficult decision of parking their cars at home.
Analysts argue that getting rid of all the fuel-related levies that are driving up prices could be challenging. Alternatively, exploiting the country's abundant natural gas might be a simple and more long-term solution.
Just investing in making sure that people start using gas instead of petrol and diesel in their cars. How do you do that? You just involve private sector. For example, as of now, we need not to use diesel in these BRT buses, the rapid bus transport system that we have in Dar es Salaam.
Recent government efforts to lower fuel prices might take a while to bear fruit. However, more action, the government believes, will ultimately ease the burden on citizens and begin to drive economic growth. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Meanwhile, in Uganda, a rise in population growth in urban areas is now worrying developers, with urban planners warning that more employment structures are urgently needed. Uganda's urban population is estimated to increase by 5% every year. Here's Isabel Nakiria with the details.
Peter Sali runs a chapati stall in Kampala. His family in rural Uganda was unable to support him. He came to Uganda in 2018 to find work after dropping out of school because he was unable to pay the fees. But life in Kampala has been a roller coaster ride for Sali.
A friend of mine brought me to Kampala, but I had no qualifications that could earn me a job. So I learned how to make chapati, and that's how I survive.
Sali earns $1.4 a day, hardly enough to keep him going. His stall is also situated on a road, and he risks being kicked out by city officials, the Kampala Capital City Authority.
The COVID-19 situation just worsened things. Sometimes we don't even work. KCCA sometimes confiscates our equipment, but we persist.
Thousands of young people like Sali trek to the city every year with the hope of finding a better life, but it often turns out to be a frustrating journey. Many rural-urban trekkers are employed in odd jobs that do not earn them a decent living. Urban planners argue governments need to restructure development by building employment centers that can take in all social classes. Authorities say it's a huge task controlling the growing number of informal workers on the streets.
We can have stalls set up for them. It can be from, let's say, 9 to 2 p.m. every Saturday, a designated place. They would make more decent sales than being daily on the streets. And then it would make sense that government is investing in walkways and pedestrians are utilizing them. Government is investing in markets and people, vendors, are utilizing them. Otherwise, it's not making sense.
The rapid population growth in Kampala has forced authorities to open up new cities with the hope of redistributing social services regionally. But developing new cities may take a long time. Uganda now has 10 cities from just 1 2 years ago.
If we are approving development plans, we need to see the distribution of services. How apart are homes from markets, are homes from shopping areas? Why do we allow one business to be redistributed within the same city more than 10 times, yet in the neighboring region, there is none?
Latest statistics from the World Bank show about 25% of Uganda's population lives in urban areas, and it's expected that by 2050, half of Uganda's population will be living in urban cities. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's housing deficit is estimated at roughly 17 million, and the cost of rent in big cities such as the commercial capital of Lagos is sky high. But the paradox of Nigeria's housing challenge is that despite its huge housing deficit, many houses, especially in its two big cities of Abuja and Lagos, are empty because many cannot afford them. Here's CGTN's Deji Bademosi with more.
This is about the fifth property Simisola would be inspecting in about 1 month. She's been frantically searching for accommodation, but has not been able to find one. And it's not because houses are not available.
I'm even tired right now, as I really haven't found what I want. The places I've been to, the prices are beyond my budget. they are way beyond my budget. I'm working within what I can afford, and I've not seen something that, that suits me. I'm still on the search. Hopefully I find one.
It's a daily experience for prospective tenants like Simisola in Lagos. The cost of rent in the city is sky high, especially in highbrow areas. And even in areas that are not classified as highbrow, rents are going up rapidly as a result of the massive influx of people into the city on a daily basis.
And then aside the major rents, that's the rent fee, you see landlords ask for things like legal fees, there's the agent fee, there's the agreement fee. All these fees put together make the cost very, very difficult to meet.
The Lagos state government estimates the city's housing deficit at 2.5 million, but the city is also Nigeria's real estate capital. New developments are springing up everywhere in spite of the economic crunch in the country. Most of the new houses, though, are bigger homes like flats and duplexes and built for outright sale rather than rent. Very few developers engage in low-income buildings.
This is the only society where we buy land as though we are buying groceries from the supermarkets. You buy land, you're paying immediately. We're not talking of loan now, because even when you take loan, the interest is outrageous, 29% interest, and usually for a short term. So you need to immediately recoup your investment on that land. So when you build, you're not building a house for a long term. You're not also going to build a house that you can't sell.
The government is trying to bridge the gap. It's building low-cost housing estates and giving them out on rent-to-own basis, as well as providing mortgage facilities at single-digit interest rates to enable people own their own homes.
We have been able to deliver 13 major housing schemes all over the state within the last 2 years. We are still counting, because as I speak to you, work is ongoing on a number of housing construction sites all over the state.
The rent-to-own initiative is certainly beyond the reach of people like Simisola, who are just looking to rent alone. The Lagos state government says it will begin to implement a monthly tenancy policy in the city from next year, as against the yearly and in some cases 2-year rent advance payment. Should that policy work, it will certainly ease the pressure on people like Simisola, who make up a sizable number of the population of the city. DG Bademosi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
You're watching Global Business Africa. Let's take a short break now, but still to come. Kentucky residents struggle with loss and damage in the aftermath of deadly tornadoes. And the government plans to stabilize growth and drive high-quality development in China. Change is on the horizon. Through the shifting of time, Africa's emerging tech landscape is creating new channels.
There's a hunger for local African content globally.
Shaped by innovation, carved out by a new generation of digital entrepreneurs, sculpted by a mobile revolution, and trickling down to the most remote corners of the continent. TechSpot is seeking out the new concepts in technology, disrupting Africa's traditional sectors.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
and holding guns. Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time? Not at all.
The Excellency, thank you very much for your time. Now, what is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Business in Africa is at a crossroads. We celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant. Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
Business in Africa is high risk.
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
And here's a quick recap of other headlines this hour. Security forces fired tear gas Monday to disperse protesters in Sudan's capital in the latest street demonstrations against the October 25th military coup, and of course subsequent deal that reinstated deposed Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. Meanwhile, the United Nations has warned against a looming food insecurity crisis in Sudan. The global body says that 14 million out of a population of 47 million will require food aid in the coming year. And the Economic Community of West African States, also known as ECOWAS, has renewed its commitment towards tackling the many challenges the region faces, from insecurity to political instability and economic challenges compounded by the coronavirus pandemic. Now, resolutions were reached at the end of the 60th Ordinary Session of Heads of States and Government Summit in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And Nigeria may ban flights from Argentina, Britain, Canada and Saudi Arabia from this week in retaliation for being added to these countries' red lists over the detection of the Omicron coronavirus variant last month. Now, Nigeria's Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika recommends that the 4 countries should be placed on a COVID-19 red list, which would entail a ban on flights. And that's a recap of other headlines this hour. And now to some international news. President Joe Biden has declared a federal emergency for Kentucky. That's after deadly tornadoes tore through a dozen U.S. states on Friday night. At least 100 people are said to have died. Officials say that number could climb even further. Well, Dan Williams has more on that story in Mayfield, Kentucky.
Well, officials are quick to point out that this, as far as they're concerned, it still is a search and rescue operation. And we did see last night sniffer dogs, canine units going house to house trying to see if they could find any survivors. But even the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, says that this it would be a miracle if they were to find any further survivors, and but remain hopeful that that could still be the case. A bit of an update on the candle factory here in Mayfield. Remember, there were reports of some 60 people missing. That figure has now been revised down to 8, with 8 confirmed deaths from that factory. So that at least is some good news from that. But the Kentucky death toll alone, that already stands at least 80 dead here. There's some 14 deaths from other states, and the governor very quick to say that the death toll is likely to be above 100 people. But going back to your question, the key element here is that it is also a recovery process underway. We're seeing yesterday emergency units here, FEMA, the emergency agency here, cleaning up debris, moving all of this. You can still see behind me the after effects of the tornadoes from Friday night. Still a huge amount to do, but that cleanup operation is still also very much underway as well.
Meanwhile, in China, the annual Central Economic Work Conference concluded on Friday. The high-level meeting reviewed China's economic performance in 2021 and also looked forward to the year ahead. Now, on Saturday, a local think tank, the China Center for International Economic Exchanges, invited policymakers to discuss what came out of that 3-day conference. Here's CGTN's Yang Shanshan with more.
How will China tackle the economic challenges of 2022? In Beijing on Saturday, policymakers said the government was taking into account many domestic and global issues which are hindering growth, such as the pandemic, global supply chain disorder, the rising costs of raw materials, and weak consumer spending. However, its focus continues to be on stabilizing economic growth, while placing a special focus on high-quality development and green energy.
Next year, we will implement an active fiscal policy and a stable monetary policy. The fiscal policy should be targeting and would focus on increasing productivity, efficiency and sustainability. We will also deduct tax and administration fees to reduce financial burdens on enterprises. A state monetary policy should be flexible and keep liquidation moderately flow. China's central bank has already announced a cut to the reserve requirement ratio for banks by 50 basis points to support the economy.
Optimizing China's economic structure is another goal. Policymakers say they will continue to regulate real estate, develop capital markets, and encourage high-tech development. Though this year's export data has been described as exceptionally good, the government hopes to encourage more consumer spending at home.
We must make efforts to boost domestic consumption. This year we have implemented a strategy of increasing domestic consumption. and consumption and investment in China has gradually recovered. Residential consumption also experienced a lift. From January to October, retail consumption maintained double-digit growth. It was driven by basic residential consumption and the consumption of higher quality goods.
China has also big plans for the development of its green economy. The government sees the energy sector as key to achieving its ambitious climate change goals.
To achieve a carbon peak by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060, the restructuring of the energy mix is top of our reform agenda. To generate more green and low-carbon energy, we first have to conserve energy. Then we will dedicate ourselves to new energy development and, at the same time, we will improve energy efficiency and make fossil fuel energy cleaner. We will initiate policies, reform the organization, and encourage technology development to incorporate more green and low-carbon energy into the energy mix.
The COVID-19 pandemic still poses a threat to global economic recovery. China will continue to implement efforts to stabilize economic development. And in the long term, China is committed to the high-quality economic growth while pursuing green economy to achieve carbon neutrality in 2060. Yang Shenshan, CGTN, Beijing.
Meanwhile, taking center stage at the 2021 China Urban Digital Economy Forum in Shanghai was the latest iteration of a virtual platform known as the Metaverse. Well, Chen Tong tells us how China's tech sector is shifting quickly to adopt this.
Digital utilization in high-quality city development, manufacturing and a new infrastructure. These were the key topics at this year's China Urban Digital Economy Forum on Monday. But the buzz among industry insiders was all about the metaverse, a transformation from 2D to a 3D virtual reality platform. Some entertainment firms like the Beijing-based Beiwen Times are looking at the metaverse to expand VR opportunities.
The concept of the metaverse is only a prototype, and to better develop the concept, we need to combine the online flow with the offline space of human beings, so we are willing to explore that much more.
Beiwen Times is looking to launch an entertainment product for the metaverse in March 2022. A report from research firm Lead Leo shows the VR market in China alone is expected to hit more than $42.5 billion by 2030, from over $31 billion this year. Another study by Research and Market says that globally, the VR market is forecast to be a whopping $500 billion by 2028.
This is the second edition of the China Urban Digital Economy Forum. And this year, new topics include the use of blockchain in this digital era.
Firms involved in blockchain, a shared ledger that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets in a network, believe they have a role to play in metaverse development.
I think blockchain would play an important part in metaverse construction. Blockchain is decentralized and traceable technology, which gives credibility. Our company has been studying blockchain for years, so I think we can do more in metaverse development.
This year's forum also named the top 10 Chinese cities that have seen most significant digital transformation. The top 3 being Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. The event also presented awards to companies that made great strides in digitalization in the country. Chen Tong, CGTN, Shanghai.
Now, China has become a major market for imported food products during the last 2 decades. From fresh fruit to meat and wine, Chinese consumers are now enjoying more imported food products as their income and their lifestyle demands improve. Here's Timothy Pope reporting on that from Shanghai.
As Chinese consumers' disposable income has risen, it's brought with it a demand for higher quality foods, and for many that means imports. The latest report, released at the 4th China International Import Expo, says the value of China's food imports reached $107.7 billion last year.
I often buy a lot of imported foods. There are more stores offering them than there were 5 years ago, and they are a lot cheaper now.
I usually buy imported snacks and fruits. They're easy to get now.
That rising demand has brought to China a notable number of multinational retailing giants like Costco and Sam's Club. They run successful warehouse stores offering a greater variety of imported foods than normal shops do. But benchmarking that success, many domestic retailers are now getting in on the banquet too.
目前我们的进口食品占
30% of our food products are imported. Those from Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the Belt and Road countries and regions sell quite well. So we are trying to bring a greater variety now. For example, we are importing more low-alcohol drinks to meet the demands of consumers between 25 and 35 years old. At the CIIE, we made more deals with international suppliers of high-quality foods.
建优质的食品的来源地做合作。
Things have moved so fast that you can now find some food imports in neighbourhood stores as well, thanks to the development of cross-border e-commerce and international logistics. Often enough, if you want some seasonal fruit imports, you can just check a fruit shop nearby.
Imported fruits sell quite well. Kiwi fruit, pineapple and jackfruit are the most popular.
Chinese consumers are now adapting to more exotic foreign tastes as well.
20 years ago, bananas were China's most popular imported fruit. But by 2020, durian was top of the list. On the other hand, apples and pears have always been China's top fruit exports. The country now exports 15 times more than it did 20 years ago. Most of it goes to North and South America.
According to the China Chamber of Commerce for the import and export of foodstuffs, China's fruit exports hit almost 3.9 million tonnes in 2020, with a value of $6.4 billion. Compared to the previous year, these figures were a 7% increase in export volume and a 16% increase in value. Timothy Pope, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
Well, before we head into a short break, here's a look at key commodities today. They remained pretty steady, such as gold, which remained in a narrow range as the market focus pivoted to this week's U.S. Fed meeting. Now, prices of coffee, on the other hand, continue to skyrocket. Prices are increasing due to production issues in Brazil and Colombia, such as droughts and floods. Arabica coffee futures on ice have gained more than 90% this year after the drought, frosts, and then a global container shortage did hamper shipping. The price surge led to farmers in Brazil, Colombia, and elsewhere to default on their deliveries of pre-sold coffee. And traders are saying the price is expected to continue to increase over the next few weeks. Well, let's head into that short break now. Still to come. We visit a newly renovated ancient promenade in Egypt's city of Luxor. And this youth group keeps the Mogadishu beach clean to protect marine life.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climate and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been Shirushi, Tunis, Cairo,
Syria,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Now in Egypt, authorities have unveiled a renovated ancient promenade in the city of Luxor, dating back 3,000 years. The ceremony marks the government's latest push to highlight the country's archaeological treasures and also further cement Egypt's robust tourism sector, which of course was damaged by the outbreak of COVID-19. Here's Yasser Hakim with more.
The glamorous parade along the Kibash or Rams Road, a 2-mile passageway that used to host annual festivities by kings of Egypt and links the renowned temples of Luxor and Karnak in the city of Luxor, has attracted the attention of many countries worldwide. It follows another impressive spectacle, the Royal Mummy's Golden Parade a few months earlier in Cairo. Officials say putting on these ceremonies amidst the tough situation caused by the outbreak of the pandemic are timely.
The whole world, I think they stopped and they waited and they watched with pride, with amaze to see this parade. So I think despite of all circumstances, it was positive. It was positive for tourism. It was positive also to show the world that we are waiting for tourists to come as soon as the travel becomes available and allowed. It is quite important, of course. Egypt sits on a unique civilization and unique archaeological sites that is never placed in the world.
Tourism, a main source of hard currency for the North African nation, has been hard hit since the coronavirus outbreak in March 2020, bringing hotel occupancy down by about 80% due to global travel restrictions. It has been recovering since the relaxation of travel measures in mid-2021. But for experts, these events have actually given a major boost to the stricken hospitality industry.
There was not one hotel room left empty in Luxor because of the event that showed its ancient monuments. They even brought in luxury cruise ships and they were all fully booked. It will have a strong impact on just not Luxor and its monuments, but on tourism overall in Egypt, especially now that hundreds of foreign media worldwide were covering the event on the ground.
Egypt is rich in archaeological sites and ancient monuments, but the Ministry of Tourism is advertising the country as a destination that offers diverse, memorable experiences for visitors.
You can visit beaches and amusement places anywhere else in the world, but the combination between the sun, sea and sand and the archaeology and the activities that the traveler can do cannot be found anywhere else in the world.
And travel agencies are reaping the rewards. As latest numbers show, tourist inflows have jumped from 3.5 million in 2020 to nearly 7.5 million in the first 11 months of 2021.
Now, we're offering packages for archaeotourism mixed with beach tourism, so the program allows the tourists to come enjoy the city, visit the historical sites and experience our rich civilization, take tours on the Nile, and then go to Marsa Alam, Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh for the beaches, the sun, the sea, go diving or snorkeling, as well as safari trips for those who like it.
Realizing the positive impact of such festivals, the government is planning more events in 2022. The Kibash Road Parade will become an annual event. There will also be a huge ceremony for the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum, the largest of its kind in the world. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And in Somalia, social gatherings are now returning back to normal after COVID restrictions were lifted. This has led to hundreds of people in Mogadishu spending their weekends along the Indian Ocean beaches. And they are leaving behind piles of plastic waste. Well, a volunteer youth group now conducts weekly cleaning exercises in order to make the beach attractive again and remove the solid waste that threatens marine life. Mohamed Kahie has the details from Mogadishu.
These young volunteers come here every weekend for cleaning. The exercise, which started 7 weeks ago, is already gaining momentum, and the organizers say they are committed.
We started the cleaning exercise with 6 people, but now there are more than 100. We are also joined by organized groups, which are 20 to 30 people, to take part in the beach cleaning program. And waste has been increasing every week because we have been discovering old trash piles.
Nim'a Abdul Qadir, who is part of the group, is a student at the Department of Environmental Science at Somali National University. She says there's a need for more awareness.
We are urging restaurant and hotel operators as well as residents living along the beach to stop dumping waste into the sea. The community also needs more awareness campaigns to reduce the amount of waste.
Local authorities threaten to take action against residents of the city that don't respect garbage collection regulations.
Our message is that everyone has the responsibility of the rubbish from his own home and must protect it from finding its way into the water. Those who don't abide by the rules will face fines.
For the last 7 weeks, the volunteer team have been camping here to clean waste left behind by residents of Mogadishu. They say solid waste does not only make the beach unattractive, but also threaten marine life. Mohamed Kahir, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
And before we leave you today, a quick look at Africa's currencies. South Africa's rand falling in early trade today as traders wait for inflation data, which is due later in the week. Now, the rand traded at 15.9 to 16 rand against the dollar, about 0.2% weaker than its previous close, with concerns about the coronavirus also weighing on sentiment. Meanwhile, Nigeria's naira weakening against the dollar on the unofficial market on the back of continued demand, especially as the holiday season picks up. Now, it's currently trading at around 567 naira per dollar on the black market. Well, that's it for this edition of Global Business Africa. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen. You can also follow us on our various digital media platforms. For me, Uche Okoronkwo, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching.